Hey guys, Kamina the coach here. Looking extra bummy. I haven't done a video in a while, so let's go with the intro first. So my name is Kamina the coach. I've been working and living abroad since about 2000. Lost track of time. 2010, 2011. I'm currently living and working in my 9th different country. I am not a digital nomad. I have worked and lived everywhere that I have been legally, mostly in the education industry. In March of 2020, I was forced back into the United States, where I aggressively started paying attention to old trauma wounds, CPTSD, and adoption trauma. Most recently, my racial trauma. And in September of 2022, I was lucky enough to move back out of the United States, currently in Iraq, Baghdad, working and living abroad. So this channel is a mixture of things about working and living abroad, things about living a better, happier lifestyle, and things about dealing with and processing very, very serious trauma. So, I'm looking a little bummy today. I haven't done a video in a while because I have been struggling with with some things going on where I am, and I think that, and so usually I do a video before I go to work, but I've also switched schedules at work, but so I just like to do a video when things are kind of chaotic in my life, and just, yeah, so things are kind of chaotic, and I'd like to just relate that to the healing. So the title of this video will be something to the effect of, this is lifetime work and happiness is a myth. The Book of Joy, which is covering the interaction of the Reverend Bishop Tutu and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, is such an, and so Netflix also has the documentary of the guy who wrote the book, and it's just, they're just precious watching the two of them talk about joy and the difference between joy and happiness. And I think that the world is doing people a horrible disservice by pushing the idea that you can always be happy. So I think that, so talking about that, healing is a forever thing. So let's start with that first, and then we'll go to the happiness portion. So I was really, really lucky to, and by the way, though I aggressively jumped into the adoption trauma stuff in 2020, I have been on a healing journey since I was 19, 20, I guess. And I'm 44 now. So I'm not new to this stuff, but just really, really aggressively diving into the science of trauma and the cognitive stuff and the actual feeling parts of it since 2020. So heavy, heavy, heavy lifting stuff. Most of it has just been cognitive stuff up until 2020. And then along with the rest of the world, I was forced into feeling a lot of things during the pandemic. So I'd like to just start off with, so a fabulous channel that I've come across that's also given me a lot of cognitive information, a lot of learning about attachment theory, CPTSD. I'd love to give a big shout out to Heidi Prieb. She's amazing, a Canadian, and I'm an INFJ, she's an ENFP, so she's like my soulmate. I adore her, and she gives some really, really spectacular information on healing trauma and attachment theory. I love the way she presents. And so in watching her, let me tell you the name of the book. So in watching her, I have then started listening to Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, who is the author, by Pete Walker. She has recommended this book very often. You can find it on YouTube, the audio version. So I've seen some interviews with him, but I like the book much better. So Heidi Prieb talks about attachment theory and all the things that go with attachment theory. From her, I was directed to Pete Walker and really looking at CPTSD. So Crappy Childhood Fairy also looks at CPTSD as well. So she's not a therapist, but she's great. She's similar to me, just a regular survivor who's done a lot of research and she's actually put her stuff into like a program. But I learned a lot from her. The truth is that there's just not a lot of information on CPTSD the way that there is PTSD. So Pete Walker, this is a really amazing book. And I guess I just wanted to, because I've recently come in contact with another survivor of the adoption world, who is actually a survivor of foster care. And this sense of impatience, I think, is something that is a common vein through all adoptees. And this, especially with men, like I'm uncomfortable and I want to solve this now. And so something that Pete Walker says in his book that was very, very, I've always said it, but I never had this kind of analogy for it, was I found it very, very poignant. He said that he likens CPTSD to diabetes, a disease that you have to treat for life, something that you can live with. It's not going to kill you, hopefully, with proper treatment, as long as you're treating it, because it actually could kill you if you're not treating it properly. There is such a thing as failure to thrive. And something else that he had brought up in the book that I kind of thought in the back of my mind, but never had really addressed, that there can be failure to thrive had historically been seen in babies in hospitals during the time when germophobia became a big deal, when nurses were not allowed to hold the babies, and infant mortality went up because babies were failing to thrive. They were just dying, giving up on life. And the very interesting thing is that a lot of us CPTSD survivors, it's theoretical, I don't know if there's any proof of this, have given up on life as an adult. And we're not actively killing ourselves, but there is this subconscious idea of giving up on thriving. So things happen, kind of a careless living. So I've had a lot of car accidents. I'm very, very clumsy. And I've heard that these statistics be aligned with people who have suffered severe trauma. And so it kind of being aligned with, somewhere in us having given up on life. And while we won't actively go attempt suicide, or we may, but giving up on life in ways that could end our lives, or being careless in a way with our lives. Interesting stuff. So if you're not if you're not treating this disease, then you can potentially die from it. But it is like diabetes. With treatment, it is not life-threatening, and you can thrive and you can survive as long as you're treating it. And it is something that you have to treat for life. And so I return to that. This anxiousness, this impatience with the healing process. It's a process, and it's a lifelong process. And oftentimes it takes a long time to start to feel relief. And you can, and kind of like treating acne, it gets worse before it gets better, because you do actually have to feel the feelings. And it's not comfortable. And that's why I think that a lot of people give up on it or choose not to do it. How sad is that? How sad. how I'm so sad for all of us. It's hard work, it's heavy lifting work, it's a lifetime of work that is worth it if you're willing to commit yourself to it. And so how that relates to the way that the world, so if you ask somebody these days what they want for their children, and they'll say for them to be happy, and there's this happiness pandemic, shall we call it that? Happiness is an emotion, and emotions aren't anything that we're supposed to be a static state. Emotions are supposed to, I don't know where I heard it, equating them to a visitor. It's something that we welcome in, we see what they have to say, and then we say goodbye to them. And that's what our emotions should be. We welcome them, see what they have to say, and then we let them go. And that's what emotions are supposed to be. There is no emotion that is supposed to be a static state. Versus joy and peace can be. Peace can be a static state. Even in times of distress, we can feel peace. I am in a very chaotic space in my life right now. And I was concerned that maybe I was in freeze, but I'm not in freeze actually. What I am is in a space where I feel peace because I know that this too shall pass, that I know that this is not a forever state. I know that this is not going to kill me. I know that I am an adult now and I am here to protect my inner child, and no real harm can come to her. And so because society has done us this big injustice of pushing that we should be happy all the time, people are constantly looking to self-medicate to achieve this constant state of happiness. And so how are they doing it? Well, obvious ways like drugs and alcohol, but a more insidious, and I dare say a much more dangerous way, is internet scrolling, food, sex, porn, because society these days has told us that happiness must be our perpetual state, and if we're not happy, there's something wrong with us. I had to pause there for a second and let it sink in, because this is real, and this is what commercials tell you, this is what movies tell you, this is what almost everything in society is telling people these days, is that if you're not happy, there's something wrong with you and you need to find a solution to that. They've made a whole industries from it. Large portions of life are not spent in elation. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. If there's something wrong, if there's an uncomfortable feeling inside of you, it is a signpost that you should sit and feel that feeling rather than reaching for the thing that you choose to numb it out with. And then, following on to that, I'll go ahead and start wrapping up with that. The book states something that, so the book that I'm listening to says that, calls what I say being kind and loving to yourself the inner critic, and so it all being related, and really learning how to retame that voice inside of you. So CPTSD sufferers having that perpetual negative voice inside of them, a parent or somebody who was harsh to them, put them in uncomfortable situations, constantly berating them and telling them that they're not enough. Even when you stub your toe, just, oh, I'm so stupid. That constant voice, that being the first step. And I have probably in every single video about how to start coming up from under this. So just really starting to learn about trauma and all of these things, the cognitive portion, but really trying to learn how to control that voice inside of your head that is talking to you in a way that you would never talk to a small child. Really, really getting in control of that voice and learning, and because you owe it to the child inside of you to let them know that they're safe and that you are willing to commit to taking care of them and that you're worthy of that. And the education of it and these two things are the first step to that forever treatment of this lifelong disease. And there are things that you can do without spending a dime, without a therapist. If you're reluctant for a support group, without that, these are things that you can do on your own. There's tons of information on YouTube, free of charge as long as you have internet, and really learning how to be gentle and speak gently to yourself is something that doesn't cost you a dime, but actually is worth you can't put a number on how much that is worth it to you, learning to speak gently and kindly to yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Some takeaways that you might want to take from this is that healing is a forever journey. There's no magic pill. And if anybody has promised you that, that's not so. If you look at my other videos, I have talked about EMDR, brain spotting, and mushrooms giving me space, and they do. They gave me the space to feel safe enough to feel my feelings. But does that mean that I'm just magic wand, like there's no more suffering and no more struggle? No. And I constantly have to work at getting it right daily. So there's no magic pill. This is like diabetes. It's something that you have to, trauma is something that you're going to have to work at forever. So there's that. Number 2, happiness is a myth. And there's nothing wrong with not feeling happy. What you should aim for is a state of peace, not happiness. And constantly self-medicating with drugs, alcohol, internet, porn, sex is not going to help you move out from this space. It's not going to help you in treatment or healing. But we'll wrap all of that up together with remembering to speak kind and gentle to yourself, kindly and gently to yourself, if you fall backwards or if you do one of these things, because you want to speak to yourself as if there was a hurting, crying child there in front of you, because instead of in front of you, that child is inside of you and deserves that love and kindness that you would give to any other child. I felt all that very deeply. I hope that you did too. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I don't have a ton of time to work with clients, but if you'd like to, please feel free to reach out, Kamina the Coach, coach with a K, @gmail.com. I would love to hear your story, speak with you, see if I can help you get any space or clarity. Otherwise, all the information you really need is on the internet. Until next time, my name is Kamina the Coach, sending you love, light, peace, and joy. Until next time, I'm out.